Is one NFC North rookie going to be a fantasy stud right away? What NFC East receiver might be in for a solid comeback year with a low ADP investment? And what sleeper quarterback or FFPC drafters wrongfully fading at the moment? Or rightfully, I never know these things. Plus, Jason Hamilton, an 8-time winner of FFPC and Footballguys leagues, will join us to talk about a former stud tight end that might be returning to greatness in 2022. The ratio of boom, bust to conservative picks on his Footballguys tournament draft so far this year, and much more. We've got a great show for you. Farrell Elliott is here. Stick around. I'm Eric Balkman. Your high-stakes fantasy football hour starts now.
Under pressure, I've seen greater men than these lessons.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now watching the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. Welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Farrell Elliott. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for analysis from the best players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Farrell Elliott.
Solace in the scripture, are we not all our father's sons? I became a man, nobody ever told me what a man was.
Thank you, Rob. Greetings and salutations to all the Bulkaholics and Ferrelliacs. Welcome to the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football presented by MyFFPC.com. I'm your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman. My co-host is the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, Farrell Elliott. Coming up on tonight's show, we're going to tell you what we think you should be doing with those Baltimore Ravens running backs. Seems like there's about 17 of them in that backfield currently. We're going to talk about whether one NFC tight end is not being drafted high enough. And then Jason Hamilton is going to join us to talk about how he's won 8 FFPC and Footballguys titles, his thoughts on TJ Hawkinson this year, and much more. If you want to connect with us on Twitter, we are at HSFF Hour on Twitter. At Eric Balkman is my personal account. I also found out there's a Balkman spoof account this week. I didn't realize that at all. But that's out there. At Eric Balkman, the real Eric Balkman on Twitter. You can always check out Farrell's Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship at KFFSC.com. And, of course, Facebook.com/HSFF Hour is where to find us. Email the show at highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com. Throughout the week, we'll try to do our best to get to all the emails, the tweets, the chat room questions throughout the program, especially in the fantasy feedback segment coming up later on in the show. Thanks to my audio engineer and my best friend Bryce and our producer and mutual friend Rob. As a reminder, the deadline, the early bird deadline for the FFPC main event is Tuesday. You can win $1 million in it, and you can save $100 off your first team, $500 off each additional team. Remember, starting Wednesday, those prices go up. So you want to make sure you're in by Tuesday. Make sure you get all your teams in by Tuesday so you can save the maximum amount of money this year. The Footballguys early bird promo is live as well. Remember, if you draft by July 15th and register prior to June 30th, you get a free $35 FFPC team credit into your account. We'll do that up to 3 times for you as well. So that's well over $100 in free teams if you want to take advantage of that. The 2022 FFPC Best Ball Tournament grand prize and prize pool is doubled. $125 could get you $200,000. The Superflex Best Ball Tournament is launched as well. We did that a couple of weeks ago. That's just $35 to enter, and you can win 10 grand doing that as well. Plenty of dynasty startups going on this weekend and going forward. So if you still want to scratch that maiden itch, probably not the best phrase for it, but that is available at myffpc.com. Plenty of slow, live, and sit-and-go best ball options, all at myffpc.com. And don't forget about the Run to Daylight Championship. Just 3 leagues remain in that, including one that's going off on Sunday night. So if you're winding down or maybe amping up because you get an extra day off this weekend with Memorial Day, maybe you want to take a break, enjoy some Kentucky fantasy football drafting. Of course, the Draft Master is also available. They're bringing my co-host right now, the incomparable Farrell Elliott. And Farrell, I got to tell you, I was kind of upset this week. I found out in my terrestrial radio show in Northeast Wisconsin a week or so ago that A.J. Dillon was actually going to be popping aboard. So I had all these fantasy questions and I was ready to ask him that and get into it. And then because of how the Packers scheduled their OTAs this week, there was no guarantee he could get on during our show. So they had to tape the interview without me. So I wasn't even able to be on it. But A.J. Dillon was on my show this week. It was fun. I just got to listen to it with everybody else, didn't get a chance to talk to him. And I had so many fantasy questions for him, man.
Oh, Man, you would have some great questions, Balky, and it would be entertaining to see how AJ could come back with some responses. Some of the players are very, very keyed in to what the realities of fantasy football, family play it, home play it. They play it themselves. I had a client once that went in to meet with his general manager about making a team, and I asked him a bunch of questions, and I said, well, didn't you ask him anything? He said, no, I was trying to get out of the meeting. I said, why? He said, I was drafting my fantasy team on my phone. So, it's fantasy football rules, and perhaps A.J. Dillon, it would rule in the front of his mind as we draw closer to the season. Maybe you can get him back later.
Yeah, that would be good. We'll see if we can do that. I also saw this tonight, just to bring baseball into it. Apparently, two outfielders for the Reds and Giants, Tommy Pham and Jock Peterson, got into an argument during a rain delay. The game between the Giants and Reds was delayed because of weather. And apparently they got into it, and one of them slapped the other one. And I'm like, this is really bizarre. And apparently it was an argument over, you guessed it, a fantasy football league that they're both in together. Really bizarre stuff. We could see suspensions from Major League Baseball because of baseball players arguing over a fantasy football league that they were both in.
Well, that's why it's important that organizations like the FFPC and the KFFFC police the activities and demand civility amongst the players.
We have never suspended anybody for slapping another major league outfielder.
No.
To my knowledge, KFFSC hasn't done it either. These are regal, reputable people that play.
We're getting close.
or in the ballpark, to borrow a baseball phrase.
We got some guys on the fence.
Let's talk about somebody who's we thought was going to be on the fence to greatness, and it hasn't happened yet. Maybe it happens this year. That's Trevor Lawrence. What he was talking about with Christian Kirk this week, I think, was interesting. SI.com had the story. Trevor Lawrence said, from a football IQ sense, I think Christian Kirk is really quarterback friendly. Now, if you remember, Christian Kirk signed the 4-year, $72 million deal with the Jacksonville Jaguars as he takes his talents from the desert in Arizona over to northern Florida to play for the Jaguars. Quote, the way he sees the field, different coverages unfold, the way he runs his routes, I just think he's quarterback friendly. And then obviously his speed is something we really need, and it's going to help us out a lot. Marvin Jones, Laviska Shenault playing the supporting roles there in the Jacksonville receiving corps. However, last year, Christian Kirk, 77 catches, 982 yards, certainly a valuable player for fantasy last year. But Farrell, how much of that was due to the offense and how much of that was due to Kyler Murray? Because now he gets to go to Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence, wide receiver 47, according to Darren Armani's fantasymojo.com. Make sure you get a membership there if you're playing in the FFPC. We love all the work he does. Christian Kirk at the 9-10. This is right behind Russell Gage and Garrett Wilson. It's right ahead of Chris Olave and Alan Lazard. Are people underdrafting him, or is this appropriate for what we expect for Kirk this year?
It's a terrible underdrafting. You've got a player here that the team is invested in, and the speed is worthwhile. Beyond the speed that he showed, and you go back to his combine numbers, he was a low 4.4s guy, but he also has a great deal of strength. He's a compacted, physical ball player. Kind of reminds me in the potentiality of being a Steve Smith from the Carolina Panthers from years ago. What I really love about this, and you can give us Darren's mojo on it, but the disappearance of Marvin Jones, a player that last year, despite all the dysfunction in Jacksonville, still caught over 70 balls. And, Marvin was a 4 or 5 receiver in drafts last year. I remember him 10, 11, 12 round draft pick for me often. And he was very good early. And he was very good late. And when we all needed him during the bye weeks, along with a lot of his other Jacksonville teammates, there was nothing there. But those two guys represent steals as far as I'm concerned in this draft. And Trevor Lawrence will emerge from a very rough and difficult year last year. He'll flip those numbers of touchdowns to interceptions and probably improve on them even more. I think this team has especially with Etienne coming back, this is a team that has the biggest chance to improve the most within the NFL, and fantasy managers should take advantage of that.
Marvin Jones, last year, wide receiver 4, you said, Farrell, I mean, way later this year. In fact, in the Footballguys Players Championship over the last week, you're looking at wide receiver 8, like a wide receiver 8, wide receiver 87 right now, going at the 1809 behind Justin Ross, the undrafted rookie which say what you will about him. But then Zay Jones and then Wan'Dale Robinson, another rookie, going right after him, along with Donovan Peoples-Jones. So Marvin Jones is sort of the forgotten guy there. We'll see what happens in Jacksonville this year. But certainly I'm with you. I think Kirk should be going higher than he is, and we shall see how that turns out. Now, let's get into my Green Bay Packers here, because Adam Stenavich, the newly minted offensive coordinator in Green Bay, said rookie wide receiver Christian Watson will, quote, be a problem for opposing secondaries. He's a rookie from North Dakota State who was taken by Green Bay in the second round, has looked really good in spring practices. The Athletics' Matt Schneidman, who covers the team, says in quote, and this is important to know, brief offseason workouts against phantom defenses. Leave that out there. Watson's already flashed the traits the Packers became enamored with. Now, to reiterate here, Watson is a guy who is 23 years old, so not the youngest guy in the world. 4.36 40, 38.5-inch vertical, 136-inch broad jump. He has a 97th percentile catch radius, 98th percentile speed score, and a 95th percentile burst score. Adam Stenavich, his combination of size and speed is great. He's a big guy. He can move. He's going to be a problem. Here's the key part. Once he figures things out. The Packers obviously are hoping his athleticism translates sooner rather than later, obviously. But you think about Aaron Rodgers in this offense with rookie receivers, it wasn't instant with Jordy Nelson. It wasn't instant with James Jones. It wasn't instant with Devontae Adams. And quite frankly, it really wasn't instant with Greg Jennings either. Now, I will contend here that while I am excited as a Packers fan for Christian Watson to see what he can do this year. And I know, I don't know what he's capable of. He could have an amazing season. More than likely, he probably won't. The difference to me, and this is what I keep hammering home, with Nelson and Jones and Adams and Jennings, while all that's true, that it took a while, there was a situation where each one of those guys came in. There was already an established player there.
Right.
With Adams, there was already Jordy Nelson. With Jordy Nelson, there's already James Jones. With James Jones, there's already Donald Driver. And all these guys, and Greg Jennings to a certain extent as well. So he always had this old reliable guy, much like what Devontae Adams was last year. He doesn't have that this year, unless you want to count Allen Lazard or Randall Cobb, and I'm not counting those guys in it. So while I do understand that it might take a little bit for Christian Watson, I also understand the Packers are in a Super Bowl window right now. They gave up 2 second-round picks to get this guy, and he might have to perform sooner rather than later. Wide receiver 51 in the 10th round. I'm all over that. I love that for the upside. Joe Del Zanero, a longtime FFPC player, always says there's no such thing as a bad pick after the 10th round. Christian Watson's in the 10th round. You can't go wrong with Watson in the 10th. I'll plant my flag on Watson in the 10th for that.
No, and we won't see him there for long. Get him now. Play in your Footballguys championship and get this player on your roster now in the 10th round, because you won't get him that way in August. As soon as we see him play. Now, we've got some quant numbers on this guy that as far as some of the things you read about his vertical and where his percentiles is with those things. But yes, Devontae Adams came into the league in 2014. And so that's a lot of years ago with different expectations. Players are better prepared to merge into the league from college now. And you say this player is a little older. Maybe we'll talk about some other players that are a little older. A lot of them are in that situation, 22 late, 23 during the season, some 24 or even 25. And that has a lot to do with the COVID and the transfer portal and things keeping players in school. This is a very good player. You have reason to be excited, Balky. Upside, especially the separation upside of what he can do after he catches the ball and take it to the house, because there's some good corners in the league, but there's not really anyone fast enough to catch him or physical enough to deny him the ball.
And I think he's the type of guy that will get schemed into the game plan a lot, whether it's jet sweeps or what have you. Like Watson's going to touch the ball a lot. Whether, how fast you can pick up the offense, how fast you can catch up with the speed of the game and going against, opposing teams' best corners, maybe sometimes at certain points of the season, that remains to be seen. I'm still cautiously excited about him this year.
You should be.
Anytime I get a coach talking about fantasy football, I'm always excited. Frank Reich, the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts, was speaking at OTAs on Wednesday. Quote from Frank Reich, according to Zach Kiefer on Twitter: "If I was a fantasy owner, I consider drafting Naheem, referring to Naheem Hines. Now, Matt Ryan is the quarterback this year, as opposed to Carson Wentz, who did not like to target the running back position last year. He played 17 games last year, did Hines, only 16 in 2020. Hines' targets went from 67 to 57. He caught 23 less balls for 172 fewer yards and only 1 touchdown last year. He finished his fantasy overalls running back 71 in half PPR games. He was number 31 the previous year. Now, with Phillip Rivers at quarterback. Now, you get Matt Ryan in there, and I'm telling you, our spike week's going to happen with Hines, maybe a couple. I'm not too excited about it. But as far as like that safety guy with, whatever happens, injuries, bye weeks hit you or whatever, to get Naheem Hines at the 1204 as running back 48. And I know they added Philip Lindsay, but that dude doesn't do anything in the passing game. There is something to like about Naheem Hines in the 12th round here.
Yes, there is, and Coach said it right. You should consider drafting Naheem Hines. And I don't believe I've ever been in a fantasy draft where I did not consider drafting Naheem Hines. He's always there. Right now there's some other running backs I like around number 12 better, but especially in best ball tournaments and that format that's forthcoming in a variety of ways later on in the season, Hines is a good player for that format. So why not?
Why not indeed? We have Jason Hamilton coming up in just a minute here, who is an 8-time winner of FFPC and Football Guys leagues. He's going to talk a little bit about his Football Guys drafts this year. And he's going to talk a little bit about how he was able to win all those leagues over the last several years. The last thing we do before we get to Jason is talk a little bit about Curtis Samuel. I know, try to curb your enthusiasm here. Ethan Cadeau on Twitter reports that Curtis Samuel is participating in off-season workouts and, quote, said, "I feel good, I feel fast," after he had a real rough 2021 season. In fact, in 5 games, he only played 84 snaps his first year with the Commanders. He had hamstring injuries. He had groin injuries. He does say he's back to 100% this year. Now, I know everybody's excited about Terry McLaurin. I feel like Washington's going to find a way to get him an extension before the start of the year, so he's going to be ready to go. Obviously, they used their first-round pick on Jahan Dotson. You would think that Curtis Samuel would probably be the number 3 receiver, and obviously in 3 receiver sets, he'd be out there. In 2020, he did post over 1,000 yards with the Carolina Panthers. Now he's basically free in drafts. He was kind of going late in 2021 drafts as well. Now we moved to 2022, Farrell. He is in the Sammy Watkins, Robbie Anderson, Van Jefferson, Corey Davis region of the 17th round, basically free. Are you seeing any value with Curtis Samuel that late?
I haven't drafted him yet, but I think I will. I like what he's saying. He feels that his speed has come back, and he's got the protections in knowing that he is a well-paid player with a relationship with the head coach. So there's a lot of good things to look at with Curtis Samuel there. And we know our friend that claims there's no bad drafts after the 10th round. There's certainly none after the 15th round. No bad players. Curtis Samuel, you would have had to pay a lot more in years past. It's like buying that cashmere overcoat on the July 4th sale, Walkie. Go ahead and do it. Might be some cold days coming.
I love the analogies from you. We get a new great one every single week. That's perfect.
I don't know.
We also get, they're all great. Trust me, they're great. They're fantastic. We want to bring in, speaking of things that are great, want to bring in tonight's guest, ladies and gentlemen. He's been playing fantasy football since Skip Hicks was beaten out by Steven Davis for the lead back in Washington.
Wow.
Or was it the Carolina Panthers? Something we might delve into tonight. He's tried to stay with it as much as time is allowed. He's been landscaping for what feels like 25 years. And over the time, not all 25 years he's been playing fantasy football, but over the last several years with the FFPC, he's pounded out 8 titles in both the FFPC and the Football Guys Players Championship. Please welcome into the program, making his debut, the another incomparable player coming on the show tonight, Jason Hamilton. Jason, welcome to the show. Happy early Memorial Day to you, man.
Hey, happy holiday, guys. Good to be here.
We're excited to have. So this is good that we got you on a night when you're not drafting a Football Guys team, right? Am I tearing you away from that?
Oh, it's here, but I got a delay, so I can spare some time, I think. So
perfect. Yeah. That's always good to hear. When you are not winning FFPC leagues, you've been a big landscaper basically since the 90s.
Yeah. I got it in early. It was high school. Probably actually junior high school, a little bit out in the woods doing some pruning, but it took a while. So I've done golf courses, sports fields for school systems. So it kept me busy. And hey, I love the outdoors, and I love the fall. Up here in the Northeast, the fall is awesome. If you've ever been here, if you haven't, you got to make a trip. Put it on your bucket list at least. Get up here sometime when the colors turn. There's all kinds of resources to time it. So, even for a quick trip. So I'd recommend it. But outside is where I want to be, and outside is football season in the fall. So I'm really looking forward to this season with some of these guys. So
Fantastic. Well, tell us exactly where you are. Where's home?
I'm in Massachusetts, Lunenburg, Massachusetts. We're up near the New Hampshire border, but it's part of New England. So we're out in the Northeast.
I love it. So you're the aspect of your landscaping business is as we move into summer months. Does that move more into caring for the lawns themselves, or are you basically a landscaper with bigger projects throughout the year?
No, I didn't do too much big contracting. That's how I got into the business. Actually, I did plenty as a laborer, when I started out, and it was fun. A lot of hard work, moving stuff around, but it was fun.
It's a great entrepreneurial aspect of being out in the world. And I've noticed that in the KFFSC, a lot of our guys that are into that or a similar business do very, very well with us, because you have some solitary time when the world is leaving you alone. So I'm going to hit you with a question where you can share some of your knowledge. And I think it's a kind of a difficult question. I'm going to give it to you the way it was worded.
Right.
As we move from dynasty to redraft, why do you think football guys drafters should try to acquire Ken Walker at the 6-7 turn? And I think there's some tricky aspects of that question. And after you answer it, I'll tell you why.
Okay. All right. In my opinion, he can do it all. It's going to be volume. It's opportunity and volume, first of all. One of the big obstacles he will have probably is that NFC West. But you got some teams now with a couple young quarterbacks, or rejuvenated quarterbacks now with a little stuff going on. And I don't know, it's there for him, I guess.
Yeah,
it is. It's really about opportunity.
Well, I think it's so there for him, and I love the opportunity so much. And Balky and I have talked about this player along with Breece Hall, and I don't see the separation in them to be that great. And I think that as we move towards that great fall season that you're looking for, he's going to be going up the board. So 6 and 7, I think, is a bargain now.
They got to run the ball, guys. They have to run the ball there, to help that defense out, because they're not going to be throwing a bunch unless they pick someone up and make a deal.
What's the percentage chance, guys, that Chris Carson makes that team? Is it less than 50% at this point with the addition of re-signing Rashad Penny and then the drafting of Kenneth Walker?
I don't know. Spine surgery, especially neck surgery, that scares the heck out of me. From taking contact. I mean, and I can't trust Pete, really. It's sunshine sometimes when it's not. So,
yeah.
So if he's there, he'll contribute, but neither he nor Rashad Penny have proven they haven't had a guy stay healthy in a while. We're going, I don't want to go too far back, but a while. So, we'll see what happens. I'm a little worried about the division and maybe the way they call it, but he does it all, and he should have a shoe in right away and run away with it if he can. If that the defense could keep him in it while he eats time off the clock, I think that's a great scenario. And I think at 6-7, if he's your if you wait a while, even if he's your first, but second or third, as a third, I love him as a third. Fantastic. Talk about a boom bust guy. I consider him a boom bust guy. Yeah.
And Hudson Kern Reeve in the chat room right now, he wants to know how good is Ken Walker in PPR versus Breece Hall? And let me just put this to you, Jason. is the disparity between what you have to invest in Breece Hall to get him rather than what you have to invest in Ken Walker correct? Breece Hall is at the 3-4 turn. Kenneth Walker is all the way down at the 6-7 turn. Are you just better off waiting on Walker because that's a better value between the two in PPR, like the FFPC and KFFSC?
It is about value, guys, because you got 20 spots, and between what you can take up, between making free agent moves, bottom line 20, you start 10 of them. I'm sorry, where were we? Right there.
I'm just asking you from a question from the chat. With Ken Walker going at the 6-7 and Breece Hall, the two top rookie running backs.
Yeah.
And like to me, that's quite a disparity between what you have to invest in for draft capital. But when it comes down to it, because it seems like you're pretty bullish on Ken Walker, to me it seems like you're better off waiting on Walker in the 6-7 turn rather than investing in Breece Hall in the 3-4.
Yeah, it's what you're sacrificing, I think, at wide receiver, or if you decide to go early quarterback, they're both there probably. A couple top guys are both there then. And wide receivers, still pretty deep this year. I've seen Adams fall a little ways, and I can't believe that now. I'm excited about Vegas this year, sure. With I think Renfro's going to have a big year too. But we'll see about that. But it's he's not going to be the next Edelman, but McDaniel's hopefully got the seasoning he needs now to really set it loose with these guys, in his own gig.
Yeah,
those New England roots run deep, Balky. Yeah, only a landscaper could trace them throughout they run very deep
on that. Yes.
Yeah, it's the old Yankee, cheap. We want to get that cheaper. So,
Jason, let's talk about a guy near and dear to my Florida State Seminoles fandom, Jameis Winston. We don't talk about quarterbacks a whole lot on the show. Maybe we should with the Superflex tournament now in full gear. But he's going really late in drafts right now. Winston is. And I look at this team now. To me, Michael Thomas is gravy. I'm not really counting on him to do much this year. But they still have Alvin Kamara, and I know he's facing the felony charges, so we'll see what happens there. But high-stakes owners don't seem to be scared off him too much. You have Chris Olave, who they invested a first-round pick in, one of the more pro-ready guys. And then they went out and signed Jarvis Landry as well. Jameis Winston is not a guy that's afraid to push the ball downfield. And certainly we don't like interceptions as fantasy players. But at the same time, we love yardage. We love touchdowns. And it seems like Winston, as far as, and I'll give you the mojo on him right now as far as where he's going, but Jameis Winston is quarterback 20 in the 16th round. Man, if you wait on quarterback to get him as your backup, I think you're doing it the right way. And quite frankly, I know there's some crazies out there, and maybe they're not so crazy. They might be waiting to the 16th round and grabbing Jameis Winston as their starter to see what happens there. Your thoughts on Winston? Why is he slipping so much, and should he be going this late in drafts?
I see no problem with what those guys are doing. So it's crossed my mind, as we go along here, increasing my odds a little bit. I'm considering that because he looked great before he got hurt last year.
Yeah.
And he was mobile. I don't expect that much this year, obviously. He may, but you never know. But they're not what they used to be. These surgeries, they're coming back quick now, guys. They really are. Pretty fast, usually, how it's going to be. And it's usually the second year still, but they physically look like they have it. So if you can keep a defense off balance, and look good coming back, I see it happening. I think so. So.
Guys, and you said something very interesting in that question there, Balky. It's 16th round, and I know that that's Darren's average, but if you're going to make this guy your quarterback, I don't advise waiting that long, because if he doesn't make it that long, there's not a lot behind him that you would want to go with.
He's a gunslinger. He's got a short memory, and he has some tools there. So you're going to get some scoring from him, and. He did sit there and learn a little bit behind Brady in Tampa before he made the move. So maybe we'll see if, he curbs that. But whether or not he throws him, as much as he does, and if he does, and it looks like he might have to, their defense isn't bad, though, guys. They're actually probably pretty good down there, too, still with that. But, the running game, a little nervous about it. So we'll see.
I don't think it's a mistake to be in business with that player, but Balky and I want to ask you about a player that I see drafters take this player and immediately have remorse at the live events. They'll draft him and then they'll say, "Oh, I guess I'll have to take Chubb." That's how they draft him. That's how they call his name out. And I wonder this year, as he continues to drop in the draft, how far does he have to go down where he's actually valued, where you're actually excited about drafting him? And what do you see from him this year?
In Cleveland?
Yes, sir, because that's where he's going to be.
Yep, it is going to be there with Hunt behind him. But it looms on Watson a bit too. But he's consistent. It doesn't matter who's been there. Mayfield was competent enough to keep things going, but Chubb is one of the best backs I think that's out there. He just doesn't get the opportunities. I don't know what it is in Cleveland. I really don't. We'll see. Things are looking up maybe this year, and I am bullish on Chubb this year. He has now Amari Cooper has joined the crowd there. They just paid. Wow, did you see what they played? Njoku?
Yeah, that case just saw that a few hours before.
Million.
That is a lot of change.
Guaranteed,
for David Njoku.
Guaranteed almost $30 million. So they're looking to add some toys around, and that can only help between Watson and getting a little more on the outside there. Those lanes are going to be even bigger, and he doesn't need a big lane. So I love him. The PPR, we'll see. It's not that he's not capable. So it's just we'll see what they do with it this year and what Deshaun does this year. So, but I am bullish on Chubb at 2-3. Absolutely, no problem for me. He's a starter.
This is Alvin Kamara, Javonte Williams going right before him. James Conner, Breece Hall, David Montgomery going after him. He's running back 14 this year. Sometimes I think the Kareem Hunt thing might be a blessing in disguise because he is capable. It keeps Nick Chubb healthier for the whole season, although he always seems to miss a random game or two every so often in there for whatever. Yeah, exactly. So another question from the professor in the chat room. He wants to know if a zero wide receiver is relatively valuable given how many receivers are in drafts this year, how deep the position is. Now, the Dizzle also in the chat posts in here. He said he's heard some people saying that wide receiver is not very deep in the draft. Jason, I don't know how you feel about this. I know I couldn't do it in the FFPC or quite frankly, Kentucky, I couldn't do it either. But like, have you ever started a draft? Would you ever start a draft with, say, 4 running backs and a quarterback or 4 running backs and a tight end and avoid the receiver position until round 6?
Yeah, I think so. There's still guys inside that top 10, even in top 12. If you have to start 3 in a league like that, then maybe not. That's different. But even so, there is plenty of guys out there. It's a throwing league nowadays, guys. It used to be you couldn't get enough running backs, and so the good ones do really, really go early at running back. So again, it's what value are you giving up when you get them? But
Balky, the professor's pretty slick to get a question there to get him ready to play in the KFFSC. I see what he's doing there.
Yeah,
he's pretty because we have to start 3 wide receivers down here, Brother Hamilton. And Jason, I got to ask you something, and It has to do – well, I want to finish up one thing with Dizzle first. I just concluded a Footballguys draft, my first one of the year. And at the 20th round, there were 6 receivers that I still wanted to take. So I'm a little wide receiver crazy, but I can find the guys. I want to ask you – this is off of our chart a little bit, but with your success that you've had you seem to me to be a guy that it sticks to your own guns, is somewhat of a contrarian drafter, does not pay attention to ADP. These questions about individual players are all good, but Balky gave your resume as we went on tonight, and it's impressive. How do other guys get there? What's been your secret?
See the gray hair?
It's all experience.
No, you got a cap on. I see the gray beard.
Yeah, I still got a little pepper up there, but easy salt in my face, though. But no, how do I? Again, I'm sorry for.
What's your
Yeah, well,
secret to
I'm
winning
just
all these
asking you.
leagues?
Bulky has a question about a tight end, and I know he loves asking his Green Bay, and we probably need to move that along. But this is part of the question. He's going to ask you about a player here that's not being drafted very highly. I sometimes wonder why. I haven't drafted him much at all, and yeah, so I'm interested to see what your answer on this player, because I think that might answer my question.
Before we get into it, Jason, are you a Packers fan?
You know, I went to school quick after high school out to Ripon.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Ripon,
that's when the love affair with Green Bay began, huh?
I was surrounded, guys, by a bunch of fibs when when the '86 Bears just rolled over the Patriots. I mean, they got a field goal, I think, in the first 2 minutes or something like that, and then it was all downhill. So,
and fibs for the uninitiated, for those of us in Wisconsin. You know, you talk about going to the northeastern part of the country during the fall. A lot of the fibs, the effing Illinois B words, which I won't say on the show, they all come up to check all the leaves in northeast Wisconsin, in northern Wisconsin. To see all the the color changing and everything like that. So maybe to avoid that this fall, I'll come pay you a visit, Jason. We'll hang out there and we'll root for the Packers, and we'll talk about the return of Bobby Tonyan to Green Bay. Now he's recovering from the ACL tear. He's going in the 12th round. This is a dude who finished as a top 5 tight end, not in 2021, but 2020 he was awesome. Granted, he did catch a lot of touchdowns, but still. 12th round in a tight end premium league like the FFPC, this is a guy you got to be all over, right?
I love him. I don't think I've drafted yet in the teams I've had this year on the league in the FFPC championship. Anyway, I've had him in every one. It's kind of like running backs with me, tight ends and running backs, because they take the beating. They really take a beating for the skill position guys compared maybe to the wide receivers and quarterbacks, obviously. So hopefully, anyway. So you gotta platoon them. And Rodgers loves his guys. He really does. I'm worried about Watson at first, but there's not too many guys out there. It's Lazard and him and Cobb, who we don't know what Cobb's going to look like. He didn't do too much when he got there last year at the end of the year. So who's it going to be? It's going to be Tonyan. They didn't draft anybody really that's going to threaten him. And besides, the 2 running backs, Dillon and Jones, Aaron Jones. Besides those 2 guys, Tonyan's the only guy he's familiar with out of them. So, what is he? He exploded 2 or 3 years ago. 2 or 3 years ago now. He's been
good in that end zone. He found that end zone.
One of Rodgers' favorites, and they've got enough guys. Rodgers will spread it around enough, but when it comes down to crunch time, that's one of the guys that he's going to lean on. So I love him. I know he's going to be in my lineup as a flex guy. But maybe match up here or there. It depends on when they do go down to Chicago. And hey, kudos to Chicago. Then it was a good time. So I have some friends in Illinois. So, but we love the kid. So Chief heads go though. Go Packers.
Let me ask you this, bro. You've got that resume of dynasty championships. Now, as you come out of that and go into your redrafts, the rookies, that love of the rookies and the evaluation of them has to set with you. I see a lot of rookies flying onto the draft boards in the early Footballguys championship. Who are some that that you're excited about that are going to stick with you throughout the drafting season all the way into August and September?
It's really Kenny Walker. You're saying rookies, right?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Kenny Walker. When you come to the wide receivers, maybe Daub's up there if he catches on too with Randall Cobb, helping him out, whatever. But oh boy, there's not maybe Dolchich. Russell does throw a good deep ball at tight end. The guy can run. He can stretch it. So maybe there, but this is a rough year. As far as the wide receivers, I mean, I like Garrett Wilson, but it's crowded there. I'm not sure what's going to happen. They got, what did they add? 2 tight ends besides Conklin and who was it? Howard?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so I gotta.
Well, that's a good group. That's a good group. You mentioned Illinois. I want to ask you about one Bear.
Okay.
Velus Jones. What do you know about Velus Jones? And how do you, it's easy to look at these receivers and say, oh, he's going with Rodgers and Sky Moore's going with Mahomes. What do you think when a young guy like Fields now gets a speed receiver to bust it down the middle, run the post patterns? Do you believe in a guy like that, or do you just have to see it first before you're getting in business with him?
No, I think you've got to take chances, and he'd certainly be one. They took their time with Fields coming up, so a little bit. I know there was a little turnover, so we'll see, how it's going there. But personally, I hope it doesn't as a Packers fan. But it's for the league. It's been exciting. I mean, how was the last couple of years? This throwing league, I can see why it's catching on. It is flashy, for sure. So, but yeah,
The other thing too, and Farrell, was this when you bring up Velus Jones, was he one of the players that you were referring to when I was talking about Christian Watson being a little bit older coming into the NFL?
Right.
Because Velus Jones is another guy that isn't the youngest cat in the world, but big opportunity in Chicago. We'll see how that happens.
Velus will still be playing when he's got hair like Jason and I. He's going to be good.
With all the fibs cheering for him.
Hello, gray hair up in there, Velus.
Jason,
I'm not betting on a lot, but the running game there.
Yeah, exactly.
They're going to be running a lot. So
you and me both. Jason, you have drafted in the Football Guys Players Championship for several years. I'm curious because you already have several drafts under your belt already this season. For anybody who has not drafted in 2022, but has maybe drafted in Football Guys in previous seasons, do you see anything different this year when you've been doing the drafts? Has there been anything that stood out to you where you're kind of like, oh man, it wasn't always like this. I'm seeing a trend this year in this direction or away from this. Has anything stood out to you this year in your drafts that maybe you hadn't seen in previous years?
I'm trying to think of specific instances. I feel like I've seen a couple, some more flyers than normal. I think there are some more risk taking out there because it is changing a lot. Like kind of like the NBA, these guys are, really starting to take some power or feel like they are anyway, and deciding where they want to go and who they want to play with. So you got to perform when you get there if you do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's
a very astute. It's a very astute observation. And I like that very, very much. A lot of the guys that listen to the show, they tell me, "Hey, you get these winners on there, get into their head and find us. We want to pick up something of how we can win." And I think a lot of times, and you've alluded to it and kind of straight out and said it in plain English, that you've got to take a risk, that you've got to try to beat out thousands of players to win $500,000 in this championship. And when we get to Las Vegas, $1 million in the FFPC championship, which would sound really good. It feels really good. Being that nice tax bracket. Who's going to get you there? Boom or bust picks. Let me tell you something I'm doing right now. I'm in the second round. I'm just slow draft. I'm waiting I went up with Dalvin Cook probably a little earlier than his ADP at the number 7 spot. I'm waiting for the guy in front of me because I'm up next. And Saquon Barkley's still on the board. And to me, I really wasn't interested in Barkley last year. Should I be this year? Is he a boom or bust guy? You've used that phrase before. Where are the other boom or bust guys? I guess you think Chubb is one. Who are some others?
I'd like Barkley, but at a better price. I'm worried there. I'm definitely taking Breida if I'm making a plan to pick up Breida behind him, or maybe one, and some other depth as always, with running back. So, boy, other than at running back specifically,
Any
So it
position.
doesn't have to be.
Any position. You're sitting there. I mean, how often, and you talked about being 20 players, how often are you going to look and say, I'm going to take the guy with the highest upside? I want the guy who's really going to explode. Maybe it is Balky's receiver Watson there. Maybe it is. Who is it? How are you going to do that?
It's going to be the end probably of the first half of the draft, somewhere in there. I would say. You got to have a little comfort level at where you're at to be able to stick it out there and hope for the best. And if not, it's still early enough. Although, boy, running backs are flying. Depth is going fast now too. We got a lot of savvier drafters and maybe in the past, so which is good. It raises the bar.
It does raise the bar. Makes it more challenging. Makes it more fun. Hudson Reeve wants to know Antonio Gibson. Is he being underdrafted right now, Jason? Gibson, remember, this is a guy that was like the next Christian McCaffrey a couple of years ago, and now he is being he's fallen in as far as his ADP goes in the Football Guys Players Championship. He's now running back 23. He's like a borderline RB2, RB3, which is insane to think about. 5th round. Has the hate gone too far in Antonio Gibson, Jason? Is the 503 too late for Gibson to be going off the board in this tournament?
Well, I'd have to see who else I had at that point, but I'm not big on him. You guys were just talking about Curtis Samuel as I was coming on there, and I've been waiting for someone to wake up to what Debo's doing out there on the West Coast, waiting for someone on the East Coast to wake up to it here, And last year, I think was it you, Farrell, that was talking about him maybe last year. Somebody was saying, waiting for it to happen. I think he could surprise McCaffrey. So I'm sorry, not McCaffrey.
Gibson.
Over Gibson. I'd say the fact that they draft Robinson too early, and McKissick is there, Patterson's there. It's crowded, and who's throwing again? Not that it mattered last year, but so
improvement this year.
So, and I mean, is Samuel going to be the running back now, and Gibson going to go back to wide receiver here, or what? He's a former wide receiver, right, Gibson?
Stranger things.
So who knows? It is fun. A lot of guys are trying some stuff out. I love Andy Reid. Pushing it here and there, and other guys. So. On the defensive side, but Belichick. So, it's fun to watch.
I like that. I like that take of it.
Farrell, you have your final question here for Jason.
You mean we got no more emails?
I have no
more
emails.
questions. The professor has no more queries. I love it.
Well, the professor's probably going to come up with something before we let Jason go.
And
right now we're all caught up.
Great minds are working, but I'll go ahead and ask my question. I get to ask this question of everybody, Jason. It's the only reason they can do the show. I want to know the guy that you cannot stand, that you do not want on your roster, that you won't draft him at any number, or even if you drafted him, you wouldn't play him. And then tell me somebody that you're just really high on. Not a player that everyone else is high on.
Okay.
You got some people like that?
I absolutely do. Yeah. And it's sad saying it from New England, but Gronk is the guy that I am not investing in at all. I don't want to get near him. He's 33, I think, something like that. But that's been a hard 33, in football years. Did you see? I think it was that hit last year. He took somewhere there mid-season or so, a little later maybe towards the end. He was just dropped onto his back, just slammed down on his back, and he stayed down a bit. And he was drafted with back trouble. And I've got a bad back, so I know it could be. And everything locks up. It's like I worry about Carson with the neck. When your spine isn't right, when your back's not right, nothing's right. So,
Interesting.
Sorry, guys.
You're out on, and the other thing too is like, and all that what you said about Gronk is not only true, but we also have to figure out if he's playing this year.
Yeah, he
he still hasn't signed. I know, but he's still up there. People are still. I'm seeing him in drafts, all over. And you can't say no if he comes back just because of his history with Brady. I mean, it's hard not to, but I'm not this year. I'm out finally this year, and it has been a great ride, Gronk, and good luck in the rest, and hopefully you're walking around okay in another 20 years.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example for another guy. So I'm a big Michael Pittman guy. I get a lot of conversation about being a Claypool guy, but I probably like Pittman just as well. And I drafted Pittman when it came out, 40 catches. I drafted him again last year, got rewarded, 80 catches. This year, I already see him going in the 4th round. Is there a guy like that for you, a guy that you've been with for a couple years that you want to have again?
Well, I have Pittman, and on a dynasty team or two, I've got him there as well. So he is one of those guys.
Yeah.
Trying to think, guys that I've been sticking to for a couple of years now.
Sometimes that's the best way to evaluate it. You stick with them when they're going the other direction as well, and you might get rewarded. I wonder if there's a guy out there like that. The coach at the Colts says it's Naheem Hines.
I'm trying to come up with someone else because we already talked about Tunyon, and he is my go-to guy because I really think everything's been positive that I've heard, and like I say, they're back, so it may take a little longer to get going.
Well, just you two Packer guys, I'll tell you to just be like Aaron Rodgers when you can't do anything else. Go to Cobb. Yeah, that would be what you should do. Just say Cobb. You'll be good.
Hey, guys with good quarterbacks, they should be popular.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, let me ask you this. He doesn't really have a great quarterback. What about a guy like T.J. Hawkinson this year? Because Detroit adds DJ Chark. They trade up for Jameis Williams. They still have a pretty good pass catcher, DeAndre Swift. Are you on board with Hawkinson this year with Jared Goff throwing to him there in Detroit?
Yes, I am. More certainly than Williamson. So, yes, I actually have him in at least one league, I believe, this year so far. And I'd like to get him in more, but he is expensive. So.
Yeah, he's not cheap. He's not cheap.
But he's not the worst either. So
and like tight end 6 right now is where he's going. He's basically a couple of picks ahead of Dalton Schultz. He's like almost 2 full rounds ahead of the next guy, which is Dallas Goedert. And tight end 5 is George Kittle, and he's going about a round and a half earlier than Hawkinson. So it's sort of like Hawkinson and Schultz on that same level there. Maybe they could be league winners this year. I'll tell you this. I know who a league winner will be this year. It is one Jason Hamilton, who's already got 8 FFPC and Football Guys leagues titles under his belt. Jason, congratulations on all your success. Good luck in 2022 as you chase that $500,000 grand prize in the Football Guys Players Championship. Thanks so much for carving out some time on a holiday weekend for us. We really appreciate it. Be good, and we'll do this again soon.
I enjoyed it, guys. Thank you for having me, and looking forward to it. So take care.
All right. Thank you, Jason. Jason Hamilton, ladies and gentlemen. He of the glorious portion of the United States known as the Northeast, which I may have to vacation at to avoid all the people from Illinois going forward now, Farrell.
He is so cool. When the FFPC movie is made, Sam Elliott will be cast to play him. He is just I really love his whole demeanor. We got to see if we can get him down here. I really like this guy.
Sam Elliott would probably be into fantasy football too, so we could get him out to Vegas and kind of warm up to him. You let him warm up to us, and then when the FFPC movie's cast, Sam Elliott obviously playing Jason Hamilton, no question.
That's what we're seeing.
All right, so let's get a couple more. I told you the professor would have more for us here tonight. And he does. He wants to know, after CeeDee Lamb, what Cowboys receiver would you draft, if any? And this, if any, is the good part. Okay, so let's talk about this here, Farrell. Michael Gallup, who is coming off the injury, but sounds like he's progressing nicely. Wide receiver 50 in the 10th round. I can definitely get on board for that. Obviously, no Amari Cooper there anymore. You have James Washington, who's now been signed with Dallas. To me, he's sort of like a best ball dart throw. Yeah. I'm not terribly interested in him in the 19th round, wide receiver 95. And then they drafted the rookie, and I'm blanking on the name now. Tolbert, right?
Tolbert out of the South Alabama.
Right. And so he's the other guy. He's wide receiver 68 in the 15th round. To me, he's kind of like, I mean, he's the unknown. So I guess I'd kind of be all right picking him in a best ball draft, but not terribly excited about it. He's not a target for me. But I think as far as Cowboys receivers not named CeeDee Lamb, I'm on board with Michael Gallup in the 10th.
I'm on board with Gallup as well, but the Tolbert is a player that has been underrated and underscouted, and he burst on the scene. He has the physical skills. He has the same things that we like about Claypool, that we like about Pittman, and he's now playing for the Dallas Cowboys. And the kid has a swagger and an attitude, unlike most rookie players. He's going to show up, and he was drafted by the right team. He's a Dallas Cowboy. I think that's going to be a player that we're going to be very, very familiar with as the season moves on.
The other question coming in from the Dizzle in the chat room, he wants to know is, now this is something that we probably should have talked about and we haven't, and that's my fault for not bringing this up. But he says, is Chris Godwin even draftable in redraft with no timetable for his return, which I think is pretty interesting here, because Chris Godwin right now in FFPC, in Football Guys Players Championship drafts, wide receiver 24 in the middle of the 5th round. Farrell, I can't get on board with that. This is Jerry Jeudy, Michael Thomas, Darnell Mooney, Brandon Cooks, Juju Smith-Schuster, Gabe Davis, Rashad Bateman, Elijah Moore. I understand the upside of Godwin, but at the same time, dude doesn't have a timetable for his return. I mean, give me not all those guys, but a bunch of those other guys after him where I can trust that these guys are going to be healthy to start the season. Maybe they don't have the upside of being the 1B or 1A receiver in the Tampa offense, but man, I'm staying away from Chris Godwin in the 5th. I want nothing to do with that.
The Dizzle is right on it, and especially with those players around him. Availability is the greatest stability. And if anyone who's drafting now is going to be drafting in August and probably more, we'll know more then, and Godwin will be available then. And he'll probably be devalued somewhat just because people have shied away from drafting him. So there will be a day that we can return to Godwin if he gets any aspect of it. Hey, he's back and he's healthy and he's ready to go, then you can green light all day on Godwin. He's a fantastic receiver. But yeah, Dizzle's right.
I'm just looking at Godwin right now because Dave Dizzle says he likes him for Dynasty. He actually signed a 3-year deal with Tampa, 3 years, $60 million, 18.7 signing bonus, average annual salary of $20 million, obviously. So it looks like there's a potential out in 2024, but if he comes back healthy this year, 2023, he's going to be, potentially in another contract year if they restructure that or extend him again, or if Tampa wants to get out of that deal, somebody will pay him and utilize him a lot in his deal. But as far as, like Dizzle says, this year I'm out on him. I can't do it. I'm not strong enough. I can't take Chris Godwin in the 5th round. Let's get to a couple of emails before we sign off tonight, and we'll kick things off in Dunwoody, Georgia. That's where Greg lives, and he wants to know, what's up, fellas? Is the Ravens' backfield one to avoid now that Mike Davis has entered the fray too? Thank you so much. Thank you for listening, Greg. That is Greg in Dunwoody, Georgia. This is a mess. And I was talking with, not to make this the Dizzle show, but I was talking with him about this a couple of weeks ago, and he's like, they add Mike Davis, and Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins are both coming back from injury. He thinks this is a sign, and hard to disagree with him, that both these guys are not healthy, or at least not as healthy as the Ravens want them to be. And then what did they do in the draft? Well, they get in Tyler Farrell. Help me, Beatty or Batty? You always get it right.
Batty.
I always get it wrong. Tyler Batty, the rookie, is on this team. Justice Hill doesn't really concern me anymore. But this is a cavalcade, a cornucopia of players that I don't know what to make heads or tails of. And for me, then the easiest thing to say is, well, okay, who's drafted first? I'm right out on him. So I'm not taking Dobbins in redraft this year. Edwards and Mike Davis are guys I don't get excited about. Batty, to me, is a guy that is not, like, he's unproven and he's so buried on the depth chart. I think the Baltimore backfield in general for me is kind of a hard pass unless I go with, like, Edwards or Mike Davis super late.
Run, Forrest, run. Get away. There's too many other things to get involved with here. And then I will point out that a lot of there's many vets that are not in camp right now, but when your quarterback's not in camp, especially when your top receiver has left and you're trying to develop a second year receiver as your number one guy in Bateman, it shows a little bit about commitment as to where the team is going. I think things could be coming a little bit unraveled there. So this is a franchise that I might want to look the other way on, even at the tight end position. He might be a little too expensive now with what I see going on at the complex there in Maryland. Things may change, and I'll change along with them, but I don't like what I'm seeing in Baltimore right now at any position.
Farrell, final email tonight, and I believe it's one we answered pre-NFL draft, but we'll take it again. John in Columbus, Ohio, has a question about Cole Kmet. He says, do you guys think that Cole Kmet should be going a lot higher than he is right now in FFPC drafts? Happy drafting season. That is John in Columbus, Ohio. Okay, so here's what I want to bring up to kind of preface this before we answer this question. Last year with the Bears, Cole Kmet, 60 catches, 612 yards, no touchdowns. We were talking about Bobby Tunyon's big year in 2020, where I think, and I don't quote me on this, but I believe he was tight end 3 in FFPC scoring, 56 catches for like 562 yards, I think, and 11 touchdowns. So obviously touchdowns were the biggest thing there. You take touchdowns away, Cole Kmet had a better season than Bobby Tunyon, right? And I know I'm crafting these stats to fit my narrative, and that's okay because, well, this is mine and Farrell's show, and I'm going to do that. So Cole Kmet this year, tight end 14 at the 1008 in tight end premium. He's going after Mike Gesicki. He's going after Rob Gronkowski, who we don't even know if he's playing this year. After the 2-year, the sophomore and Pat Freiermuth. After Dawson Knox, who has more competition for targets in that offense now. Zach Ertz, who's getting older and older. I mean, and I think you're going to side with me on this, and I think that you said you were a big fan of Cole Kmet earlier this season. I'll see if it's changed now. But 1008, tight end 14, this guy's got to go higher than where he is right now.
Perhaps he will. There's just something about the way he relates to this quarterback that does not work for me. So I don't know if I can identify double-digit drafted tight ends that I can get cheaper behind him. If I have Kmet, I want to have 2 more, and I want to believe in those 2 guys as well. And I'm going. There's a lot of things that would depend on me starting this player because some of those other guys have a great deal of upside. And Kmet, he not only did he not score touchdowns, he struggled in the red zone, which is odd. He struggles to get any sort of separation that might be due to the passing game and the other people that are on the field with him. But he shouldn't. You think of guys that were low volume producers but were standouts in the red zone as tight ends. Rudolph at Minnesota, he was a guy that would always get open. This guy just does not seem to get open, and this offense just does not seem to direct to the tight ends. So until I see that, I like the other guys a little better that you're mentioning.
So is tight end 14 appropriate for him then? Or is it too high?
I think so. And it's got to be appropriate. And then I've got to have 2 guys that I really almost like as much that I can steal later on. And, there might be Everett. Might be a Dulich. It might be someone that I think I can get later on. Maybe Njoku, because if they're going to pay him like this, they've got to have some big plans for him.
And we didn't talk about Njoku at all because, and by the way, he is now I believe the 5th highest paid tight end in the league. I'm going to repeat that. David Njoku is now the 5th highest paid tight end in the NFL. David Njoku, who, by the way, Football Guys drafters are taking him right now. I got to scroll way far down on this.
Yeah, you do.
Tight end 21 at the 1302. Bobby Tunyon going ahead of him. Tyler Higbee, who had offseason knee surgery, is going ahead of him. Hunter Henry, Noah Fant, Irv Smith, by the way. I guess he's looking good now, but he was coming off a pretty serious injury. Albert Okwuepenalm is going ahead of him, and then the aforementioned Cole Kmet is also going ahead of David Njoku. But it'll be interesting to see what happens. Memorial Day drafting in the FFPC and the KFFSC, Memorial Day weekend drafting. What happens? How do drafters treat David Njoku after signing this big deal? Money talks.
Yes, sir, it does.
Will also happen in drafts. I don't know. We'll see what happens there. Farrell, this was so much fun. Let's do it again. I believe, next Friday, we will do this again at 10/9 Central. Plenty more. There's going to be a ton more that happens. We're going to have OTAs to discuss. We're going to have mini camps coming up. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're in the thick of it. It's exciting to talk fantasy football with you. I certainly appreciate it. Have a great Memorial Day weekend, sir.
You too, Balky. See you soon.
Appreciate it, man. Farrell Elliott, the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship Commissioner. You can check out the KFFSC at kffsc.com. Don't forget the Run to Daylight filling up there. We got 7 open spots on Sunday night if you want to draft in that. Only 2 leagues after that, so make sure you're getting in now. Draft Masters, the main event, obviously going on right now, so make sure you're registering to either draft online, draft in Cincinnati, or draft live in Louisville. That is going to be a fun time. I'll see you in Louisville if you're down there. Thanks to Jason Hamilton. Thanks to Farrell Elliott. Thanks to the FFPC, Rob Rice, and of course, each and every one of you. As I mentioned with Farrell, we are back at 10/9 Central this coming Friday. You can win $1 million in the 2022 FFPC main event. Don't forget, if you want to save on your teams, register by Tuesday at midnight Pacific time. You can save $100 off your first team, $500 off each additional team. And don't forget, the prices for those main event teams go up June 1st. Don't just get your first team in, get all your teams in before then so you can save the most possible. Remember, each entry that you pick up will represent an entry in the FFPC Pros versus Joe's drawing, which we'll be conducting probably in the next week and a half, 2 weeks or so. And then hopefully you get selected in that. Go against the best in the industry, the best the FFPC has to offer, and you'll all be competing for 7 FFPC main event entries for 2023. That's going to be exciting. We'll broadcast all those drafts right here on this show. Football Guys early bird promo live as well. If you want to get a free $35 team credit, make sure you're registering for the Football Guys Players Championship. And as Hudson Kern Reed pointed out to me, who he has registered in the FFPC Midnight Draft tonight, along with John Terry, who had 2 top 10 FPC teams last year. We are at 5 teams left in that. That draft starts in 45 minutes. Yours truly will be officiating, so make sure you're popping in on that. I'd love to see you in there. Maybe we talk about the draft next week on this show. So make sure you're signing up for that and taking a shot at $500,000. Of course, the best ball tournament, grand prize is doubled. The prize pool is doubled. Make sure you're getting in on that. $125 could get you $200,000. The Superflex Best Ball Tournament, you can take $35, maybe turn that into $10,000. That's at myffpc.com. Dynasty startups are available as well. Plenty of slow, live, and sit-and-go best ball options, all at myffpc.com. And I already mentioned the Run to Daylight Championship, the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship main event, and, of course, the KFFSC Draft Masters, all at kffsc.com. Ladies and gentlemen, that will do it for our show tonight. Thanks so much for hanging out with us on holiday weekend. We really appreciate it. Your Memorial Day weekend officially starts now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com. It was broadcast live and was watched around the world. Balky and Farrell will be back next week with more analysis, more interviews, and more advice from guests much smarter than they are. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk with you again next week.
I just want to leave you with this week. I know I mentioned the A.J. Dillon thing earlier in the show, but I also today on my local radio show, I got a chance to talk to Alex Green, a guy that many of you Dynasty players might remember. He was a 3rd-round pick for the Packers in 2011 when they were the defending Super Bowl champions. He's a running back out of Hawaii. And basically, the reason we had him on is in November of this past year. After he got out of football, he got into alcohol and drugs pretty bad, hit rock bottom in November, and sent a text message to a phone number he got from the NFLPA for players to call, text when they're having these issues with depression, which he was battling, addiction, what have you. And he told me today he didn't care what would happen to him. He didn't care how drunk he got, how high he got. He didn't care what was going to happen to him. He didn't care if he ever woke up again. But he sent a text to this number just to lie to himself, to basically say, well, I did what I could. I asked for help and nobody answered. He thought this was a landline, just a toll-free number. So that's why he was doing it. He got a phone call from a woman there with the Trust, which is the organization that the NFLPA had in place. And her name, if I can find it here, Lachey Davis Williams, had a crying two-year-old son. But she listened to him cry about his life, what had happened to him, the bad place that he was in, and how he needed help at 1 a.m. for an hour and a half. And basically told him that she could help him. She said, we can get you to a rehab facility in Jacksonville, Florida in 2 days, but you got to get on a plane now. And he said, okay. And this was the only reason he texted this number, was because he thought he wouldn't get a call back. He wouldn't get a text back. He was lying to himself, basically thinking that, well, I did all I could, when in reality he couldn't. Fast forward now, this was in November 2021. Fast forward now to May 27th of 2022. He's 7 months sober, and he's basically, speaking, going around the country and speaking to young kids or people who need to hear it, people who, are embarrassed about needing help for mental health, or embarrassed about, telling their problems to somebody else, saying that it's okay and we're all dealing with something. And, if I can help you, then this is a win for all of us. He might get back into pro football. Maybe he'll get into coaching. He doesn't know yet, but it was a really inspiring conversation. And given that this is the last show we do in May, which is National Mental Health Awareness Month, I think it's important to bring that up. Shout out to all the veterans, everybody who served, everybody who's given everything on this Memorial Day weekend. We appreciate it. Make sure you shake a veteran's hand or tell a veteran's family how much you appreciate what they did for this country. But also remember that we're all struggling with something out there. We all have our issues, and that if you are one of those people, to reach out. It's not too late. Don't lie to yourself like Alex Green did and send out a real text to a number he thought nobody ever would get back to. Just tell somebody, that you do need help, and it's okay, because we're all struggling with something. I'll get off my soapbox tonight. That's it for the show. Thank you so much. Good mental health. Good Memorial Day weekend to you. We'll do this again next Friday.